So you love podcasts, and you want to listen to more amazing content, but you have no idea what to listen to. And your friends keep telling you about great episodes, yet you can never remember what they told you. Well, here's the answer. Good Pods. It's the social app dedicated to podcasts where your friends, podcast listeners, and favorite podcast hosts all come together to share on their feeds what they recommend and what they listen to. You can connect to others, bookmark episodes, start a conversation about the episode, connect to the hosts, and most importantly, listen to great podcasts right in the Good Pods app. Download Good Pods wherever you get your apps and start sharing with a community that loves to listen. Good Pods. It's where to connect and listen.
Well, I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal. People know me. I'm very important. I have many leather-bound books, and my apartment smells like Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
A third of the people love you, a third don't care about you, and a third hate you. So you concentrate on the third that love you, and you go for it.
I think the greatest Achilles heel for leaders is they don't give themselves time to think.
So my journey is one of those, there are a lot of detours. There's a lot of going off on the side roads.
Thrive Out listeners, you're in for a treat. We're here with Jamal Mashburn, Jesse Itzler, the John Maxwell, Jackie the Joke Man Martling, New York Rangers great Mike Richter, Lisa Lampanelli, Mary Carrillo.
Oh, how nice.
I'm actually going through the practice of being an entrepreneur.
Pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and thrive loud.
Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
I love it.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting into the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond. Today on Thrive Loud, we have a speechwriter, debate coach, marketing and advertising strategist who has worked in 4 U.S. presidential campaigns, scores of U.S. Senate and gubernatorial and congressional races, and is the author of 3 books. He's received several national awards for his work. He is a masterful storyteller, a leader, and I am fortunate enough to tell the listeners here, a friend. Thrive Loud listeners, I bring you the man, the myth, the legend, the Jay Townsend. Jay, how are you today?
I am terrific. How are you, my friend?
I am good. Thrive Loud listeners, I want to let you know that at the time of this recording, this is almost getting to late June, unbelievable. I'll just call it mid-June at this point. We have just celebrated 1 week ago to this day the end of his term as the president of the NSA, the National Speaker Association, New York City chapter. And I have the privilege of being involved with this man and getting to see his leadership, be under his tutelage, and got a chance to hear him deliver so many incredible stories in such a fun, creative way that it's so charming that I wanted the Thrive Loud community to experience and connect with such an incredible individual. And Jay, with that, now that you're all bright red and rosy cheeked.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you really do flatter me.
Yes. What I wanted to do is, this is really cool, as you can tell from the bio that I just described, listeners. We're in an election year, and we have a guy that really is a master at helping to market candidates or potential candidates. And I think that's what people would love to hear what you do, because it is a unique thing you do, Jay. So can you share with the listeners a little bit about the core of your main services, and we'll take things from there?
Yeah, okay. The typical Jay Townsend client relationship. Somebody finds me and calls me and says, I want to run for Congress or the state Senate or mayor, or occasionally even somebody says running for president. And I talk to them for a period of time, usually 60 to 90 minutes, and I get an idea of what they really want to do and what they're passionate about. And then I make a determination. Are they the kind of person that I would have a good working relationship with? Or are they the kind of person that would make me uncomfortable? If I determine that they would make me uncomfortable advancing their cause, I'll suggest that they find help somewhere else. If we have a good chemistry, I'll say, this is what we can do, and this is what I will help you do. I will help you develop a very clear and compelling message. I will help you find that story deep down inside your soul, buried in the back of your brain, that lets voters know what makes you tick, why you think the way you do, why you want to promote these issues that you deem important to you. I will help you leverage your network so that you go into the campaign with having a lot of established support from important players in your community. I will guide your advertising effort, figure out your strategy so that we know who we're going to target, what we're going to say, to whom we are going to say it, when we are going to say it. And I will help you define this election in a clear black and white choice between you and your opponent so that the voters have an easy decision when they go into the voting booth.
I'm thinking, Jay, that we just bottle what you just said. We make it into a cool little explanation on your website and just have it play if anybody ever wants to ask that question. That was the most perfect description of exactly what you do. Thank you for sharing. I wanted to dive in on that. What would be something that would make you uncomfortable and choose you not to work with a certain type of potential candidate?
I find myself really, really uncomfortable with people on ideological extremes.
Mm-hmm.
By nature, I am a problem solver. The most successful clients I have ever had after they were elected were people who were interested in solving problems, improving the quality of life for people in their community, righting a fundamental wrong or correcting something that they found to be an injustice.
Mm-hmm.
You have to build coalitions. You have to work well with other people in order to fix problems like that. Therefore, I tend to gravitate toward people who are not extremists, but rather problem solvers.
I like it.
What I find is the people on the extremes are more interested in preaching from the soapbox, but not particularly interested in doing anything except hearing themselves talk.
Mm.
And quite often, those people who are just interested in hearing themselves talk are not problem solvers, or polarizers. And I just don't work well with people like that.
Jay, you mentioned polarization and polarizing. We're in some pretty polarizing times right now.
So we are, and it's holding us back as a country. It is poisoning our discourse. It is poisoning our politics. And if there's one thing I could do, if I could wave a magic wand, is to make that go away, because we're so polarized, very few problems are being solved at this point. And it's going to come to the detriment of our country if we don't get that fixed.
It's funny because polarization has been brewing for a while. It just feels like in years past, whether candidates or the country, eventually you may have had one side, but you bled to the middle. Now it feels exactly the opposite, where maybe everybody starts in the middle and ends up on a side. When it comes to helping craft the strategy and the communication with your clients or prospective clients that are working with you, talk about this issue we're facing right now. The whole country is polarized from what's happened in the Minnesota Police Department and has been prevalent in just about every major city. And having to try to bring these things together, it's really hard. People are so on their side on whatever way you're in, helping people develop these messages so that they can still help create change, but also connect to their community, as you say. How do you deal with this hurdle today?
I'm glad you raised that, and because you use the term polarized. And Lou, I'm going to argue with a little bit about this particular issue.
Okay.
Well, I don't think we're as polarized on that as people at Fox News would portray. Right? And let's just observe. I've seen pictures of the demonstrations. I've marched or walked on the sidewalk next to a demonstration. And I saw as many white faces as I did African American faces. That doesn't look like polarization to me. That looks like white people recognizing that there is discrimination and intolerance in America toward African Americans, and it needs to stop. Now, there are those in this country, I suppose, that have never gotten over the fact that the North won the Civil War. But the fact of the matter is, we have not been kind to African Americans. We never have. In theory, it ended with the Civil War. But if you look at the gross discrimination that took place after Reconstruction up through the 60s, where you did not have the right to vote, you didn't have the right to own property, you were in danger of being lynched if you dared walk outside your house or go to a civil rights meeting. It was especially true in the South up until the 1960s. We then passed legislation guaranteeing the right to vote and civil rights and enforcing no discrimination in housing. But Lou, it didn't fix a lot of the stuff that needs to be fixed.
Right.
We're going to have a real discussion about how to correct this income inequality in America. It's high time we had it. But what brought this recently to bear, I think we can owe some thanks to the people who make cell phones, is America is now seeing how some Black people are treated by law enforcement authorities. Yeah. And you can't look at that video from Minnesota and not be angry if you've got a heart. You can't look at stuff like that and not be angry, and you have to say, what is the problem here? The video is waking up to the country that we are nowhere near fixing this problem like we need to be, and we've got to find a better way. This cannot be allowed to happen. Now, the problem solvers of this world are looking at legislation to say, how do we keep communities safe but stop police from doing it? That is solving a problem. The polarizers want to scream about anybody who suggests reforming police departments and the way they operate is out to destroy America and turn it over to the rioters. That's why I say those people are never going to solve a problem. So I'm saying, let's go solve the problem. And what you're going to have to do is you got to get conservative people and Democrats and conservative Republican problem solvers together, and they will fix it if you take the noise out of the room.
I want to try to elevate this above to a real strategic thinking, because one of the biggest challenges and the rather ironic comments I'm about to make right now is that the people that can help make some of the changes are dependent upon whether or not they get elected and they get put into the position of office. And therefore, to get into the position of office, they have to win the election and cater their message to be able to get the majority of the votes that they need to so that they could be in that position to do that. I've always had a big problem with one area, and that is that the minute that somebody gets elected into office, the first thing they're thinking about is how they can get elected again, as opposed to going in and trying to solve the problem that they preach to deal with. To someone that is knee deep in that, and that's the world you're in, if you were to wave another magic wand and maybe come up with a better way to change how that process gets done, would you change how quickly you have to be in term, or would you make it longer or shorter? Just that's my own curious question in this, because I think that is part of the problem that we have, is the constant, it's just about getting into the office and then nothing gets done.
I'd go after the problem a different way, Lou.
Okay, I would love to hear it.
Part of the problem is the way congressional districts in this country are gerrymandered to get a preordained outcome. as computers began to, with great sophistication, draw lines and put certain people on one side of that line or the other, and the computer modeling would more or less look at their history, their income, their party affiliation, and so on. And that computer could say, well, people who live in this city block or this neighborhood are going to vote for the candidate of this party. So what happened is that the 50 states, they draw up congressional districts every 10 years. And they create safe districts for Democrats. They create safe districts for Republicans. And when you got a safe Democrat or safe Republican district, then the outcome of the general election is determined in the primary.
Right.
Because no matter what Democrat is nominated, the Democrat's going to win the general election. That's true where we live here in New York, Lou.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But what happens when you do it that way is you have a very small slice of a primary electorate deciding who the nominee is for that congressional seat. Most people do not vote in primaries.
Right.
And the loudest voices sometimes tend to win primaries because, you know, the kind of rule of thumb in a Republican primary is you better tack right. Rule of thumb in a Democrat primary is you better tack left. Well, when far right and far left gets nominated, after they're elected, they go to their soapbox and they yell. Right. They don't solve problems. So I think one of the ways to fix this is to say, no more gerrymandering. Second thing I would do if I could wave that magic wand is I'd get this dark, filthy money out of politics so that you don't have these millionaires writing checks to go throw an election by throwing $2 or $3 million into a race a couple of weeks, and nobody knows until after the election who did it and where the ads came from. This would go a long way. Now, if you go back to an earlier time in American history, before they learned the art of the gerrymander, if you had a landslide election, take 1932, a majority of the seats in Congress changed hands.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at it now, even in a landslide election, 85 to 90% of the Congress is going to be reelected.
Right.
Term limits, we have them. They're called elections. But in many districts in the United States, the elections have no meaning because they've been rigged to get a predetermined outcome.
Yeah.
So let's bring back free and fair elections. That would be my answer. And then you'll see more problem solvers in Congress.
I like it. I like it. I want to shift it to you a little bit here. And that is, obviously, you've been working in this space for a very long time and have probably had things that you're incredibly proud of and things, you know, that kind of ran the gamut of your regular flow. Is there one thing in your time doing what you're doing that you literally put a mark down and say, that's the thing I was the most proud of, whether it was something you wrote, something you communicated, a thing that delivered something where you really were proud of the work that you did?
There have been a lot of those, Lou. So I'm going to categorize them in a different way. The races I'm most proud of are the races where I made a difference.
Okay.
You know, sometimes candidates call me and they ask me to help, but the outcome was never really in doubt. They were going to win. When they called me, they asked me to help just to make sure I was there in case something went wrong. The races that really mattered to me is where someone came to me with really deep passion and commitment for a cause. Didn't come to me with a lot of money, didn't come to me with a lot of support. They just had a beautiful idea and something they wanted to fix or change. And I took what is their most powerful tool, the words that come out of their mouth, to break down the barriers that were put in front of them. Now, some examples. There's a congressional district north of New York City. The only two women who have held that seat were clients of mine. Both of them opposed by the party establishment. Both of them opposed by the party leadership. And in both cases, I helped them run over the party leadership trying to get in their way because the real reason was that they didn't believe that a woman should be in Congress. Believe it or not, that's still out there. So it's the times I've helped African Americans who were not given a shot make a difference in the marketplace of ideas and win races they were not supposed to win. It's the women, it's the people who were not given a natural advantage, who were not natural recipients of a lot of campaign contributions. And helping them use that most powerful tool they own, the words that they say, to touch hearts and bring people with them by their articulation of a worthy cause or of movement that needed to be started. I live for races like that.
I love it. Jay, I love asking guests on this program this question because I think I'm pretty curious. As the listeners can tell to this point, and you're backing up my very powerful opening about how great you are. But every day we have our ups and downs. We have good days and bad days. On those days when you're not quite kicking on all cylinders and you're having trouble thriving, who or what practice do you seek to get yourself back on the thriving track?
Days like that, I have them. It's when I get stuck. I'm working on someone's message and it doesn't come to me. I get antsy. I want to hit the computer. So there are certain ways that I can read my body and say, okay, it's time to get away from the computer and get out of the office. And I usually do one of two things. I'm an addict of what we call hot yoga. It's one of my favorite places in New York. And it's an excruciating routine. You go down to a pair of shorts, you go into a room where it's 105 degrees, and for 90 minutes, you're moving in the most impossible kinds of stretches imaginable. And when I walk out of that, I'm drained, but my head is clear. Can't do that right now with COVID-19 rules, so I've been doing 5-mile walks every other day. Between those two, whatever angst I've got in my system, I usually get rid of it with one of those two things.
I'm just trying to imagine a makeshift way, people like cranking up the heat in a summer day to try to mimic the environment that they can get in a hot yoga thing. Hopefully you don't do that. That would you get desperate in that sense. I want to get the admin part of the show out of the way because we have a lot more to talk about. Can you share with the listeners all the places people can find you? Websites, links, stuff like that. We will put it all in the show notes. However, it always gets more engagement when they hear it directly from you.
Okay. Well, if you use my name, Jay Townsend, Townsend, you can put jtownsend.com. That gets you my website. If you go to YouTube, you type in jtownsend.com and you'll find my YouTube channel. If you can't remember my name, simply go to YouTube and type in how to win an election. And on that first page, you'll see 5, 6, 7 of my videos.
There you go.
They, for whatever reason, they show up on page 1 when someone types that term, how to win an election, into the YouTube search bar. Those are the best places to find me. If you want to email me, jay@jtownsend.com.
All right. I love it.
That will get it to me.
Listeners, he responds. He's pretty good that way. So let it be known. Permission, Jay, to head down Fun Street here on Thrive Loud with you. Not that we haven't been having fun
Permission
already.
granted.
All right. First of all, can you share with the listeners your all-time favorite movie?
Margin call.
Okay. Now, why does this movie connect so much with you?
Margin call was about good and evil. And what I loved about the movie is as you watched it and you put yourself in the shoes of the people making the decision between good and evil, by the time the end of the movie had arrived, you yourself were not sure what you would have done in the same situation.
So this is, by the way, this is funny. I'm going to jump in here. I've seen this movie and there's some spectacular dialogue. And if I could opine here and jump in here, my favorite scene in that movie, and this is the 2011 one, right? With Zachary Quinto, Stanley Tucci, right? We're talking about the same movie.
Jeremy Irons was...
Jeremy Irons, yes. He was but Stanley Tucci was the guy who figured out the whole issue that the firm had during the problem. And he described the story about making the bridge. You remember that scene?
Yeah.
He's sitting on his step in front of his house in Brooklyn or wherever it is, and he talks about that. And it's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite real acting scenes where an actor really gets into that character and paints it in just about a minute and a half. And I thought that was really good. But anyway,
to your listeners who may not be familiar with it, it's based upon the decisions made by one of New York's top Wall Street firms when they discovered that they had a lot of this toxic mortgage stuff on their books and that they needed to either get rid of it, knowing that the people who bought it were going to suffer for having bought it. But if they didn't get rid of it, the firm was going to go belly under too. And it was marvelous script, a marvelous story that kind of left you wondering, man, that was a hard decision.
I like it. And it is true, by the way. I love it. And you're right. It is a good and evil, specifically at the, it's almost like a deal with the devil type of a thing. I could see it. I like it. I may have to watch that one again. I'm in on that one. All right, Jay, we're going to do this. We've been doing this the last few episodes and we've gotten mixed reviews from the responses, but rave reviews for the concept in theory here. And I think you're up to the task. Ready to rock and roll? This is a true Fun Street stroll, if you would. I'm going to ask you a few questions. You come with the first thing that comes to your mind, something that you enjoy really is what we're looking for at the top of your brain here. And here we go. Okay. So a favorite song you love to listen to?
Adagio.
A favorite food that's not a dessert?
Fish.
A favorite food that is a dessert?
Chocolate covered almonds.
An activity you wish you did more of?
Yoga.
An activity you wish you did less of?
Email.
If you could snap your fingers and go anywhere in the world, where are you?
Paris.
Lastly, if you can pick one day of the year to relive over and over again, what would that day be?
God, Lou, I have fun every day. I'm one of those people that wakes up in the morning and said, you know what? This is your best day yet. You got another day in your life to live, because some people did not wake up this morning and will never wake up again. So I enjoy every day.
You enjoy every day. And that is the truth. I think that's what Thrive Loud is all about. Those that are thriving each and every day. Any last words, I guess, to our listeners, whether it be about what you do every day for your work, where we are right now, things you're looking forward to, last messages you want to share with this thriving community that is always inspired by our guests?
Yes, and it's this. I'm one of those lucky human beings on earth in that I was a teenager when I figured out what I wanted to do for a living, when I knew what my passion was, when I knew why I had been born and what I was put on earth to do. My passion happens to be politics. And I've noticed that through the years, there are a lot of people who got into politics even though it wasn't their passion early in life. What their passion really was is fixing a problem or righting a wrong or correcting an injustice or improving the quality of life for people in their community. And I would say to your listeners, if you have that kind of passion, it is perfectly acceptable to use politics and public discourse in the marketplace of ideas to advance your cause, to run for office and try and fix it. That is the quickest and the easiest way to fix a problem in this great democracy of ours. I wish more people would try, and I would say to your listeners, my God, don't be afraid to say yes to your passion. The people who run for office and go through the experience of holding public office are living fully every single day of their life.
Jay Townsend, an honor, a well-defined individual on every level, a true patriot and passionate and embodies so many things that we love on this show. I am blessed to have had you on the show here today.
Thank you, my friend.
And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Check us out on the web at thriveloud.com. Follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at Thrive Loud. Check us out on the Good Pods app at Thrive Loud, where you can follow, listen, and connect directly to Lou and all of the Thrive Loud episodes. Thanks for listening.